Well, hey again, this is Daniel with another Book of the Week review. This week we're going to review an interesting title called The 50th Law by Robert Greene and Curtis Jackson, better known as 50 Cent, the rapper. Very interesting title, part sort of stylized autobiography of 50 Cent, part kind of classical historical study, and part kind of self-help book. It's a very interesting amalgamation, and for those of you who are fans of either Robert Greene and know his work from the 48 Laws of Power or Strategies of War type books, or if you're a fan of 50 Cent's music or the man himself, this book's probably going to be right up your alley. It's something that I picked up randomly, just was interested in the title, and seemed to appeal to me, so I kind of checked it out. Starts off very simply talking a little bit about 50 Cent the rapper, basically giving you a bit of his background and his story. Obviously had a very interesting life as a street hustler and drug dealer very early on, and then moved into becoming a musician later on in his life. The 50th law itself starts to then move to talking about the idea of fear and how fear impacts our lives in so many different ways. You know, we're all kind of unconsciously living with this sense underneath everything else of fear of the unknown, fear of risk, of death, of whatever, all these things that tend to hold us back in certain ways in our lives. And the 50th law cuts right to the heart of this. It tries to actually eradicate fear from our lives in many different ways. Obviously, the first couple of chapters talk about how we tend to hold ourselves back and how we can be held back by, you know, the actions of others, and how we don't want to actually step out of the norm. Very interesting. Then it starts to talk more about things like self-reliance, which is a very powerful technique, and how we tend to often depend on the opinions and rely on the directions of other people rather than actually looking for our own direction in life, trying to find out what we want to do first and listening to our heart first. It also talks about things like opportunism, how often we tend to get stuck in this mire of thinking that opportunity is somehow out there and we'll find it one day, whereas what it shares in the book is the idea that very often opportunism is a mindset. It's a way of thinking about our lives, looking for those ways that we can constantly improve and change ourselves to create opportunity. So that's a very powerful idea that I took away as well. Also the idea of aggression, and you don't hear a lot about the idea of aggression ever being a good thing, but in this book and in the context that Robert Greene and 50 Cent talk about it, it can be used in a certain way to actually empower you and to fight off some of the challenges of life if you channel your aggression in the right way and know when to use it. So it's a very interesting idea to learn about as well. If you are a fan of Robert Greene books, you would know that he does use a lot of historical stories throughout. In this book, he does delve into the lives of other people as well, people like Leonardo da Vinci, Isaac Newton, Malcolm X, John F. Kennedy, and he uses those stories to kind of pepper throughout different ideas and different philosophies that kind of back up what 50 Cent's life teaches us. And so it's an interesting read. As I said, part sort of history book, part autobiography, very hard hitting, doesn't pull any punches, doesn't try to make excuses for its own philosophy. So if you're not wanting something that's very direct and very honest, this may not be for you. It's very unique in that way. Not very empirical, so there's not a lot of research behind the philosophy. Obviously, it's very much what they think and what they feel. So if you're a fan, you'll probably like that. If you're coming to this book new, be aware of that. Realize that it's not going to just back up everything it's saying. It's going to make points and then move on very quickly. I found that actually quite interesting. I thought it worked well in this context, so hopefully you will as well. For the book overall, 50th Law, I'm going to give it 4 stars. I think for me it's been a very motivational book. It's been something that's really helped me at times in my life to be able to overcome challenges. It tends to give you a bit of a lift when you're feeling down, or if you're feeling a bit nervous or anxious, it can really inspire you to move forward. So 4 stars from me. I would have given it 5, just the 1 star off, as I said, not for being heavily researched. It feels a little bit kind of breezy in parts. It's kind of backing up its own stories with selective historical stories. So I think that's part of Robert Greene's philosophy. Personally, I don't mind it. Some people might find it a little bit funny, but check it out. It's probably about $10, $15 on Amazon or eBay. It's out there and it's available now. Published last year, so plenty of copies. Kind of comes with this cool kind of leather copy cover. So yeah, check it out. 50th Law, 50 Cent, and Robert Greene. Cheers.